submarine. And coming across to that, we just briefly electric diesel electric. The whole submarine actually runs on electricity, and there's two huge batteries. We'll talk about those in a moment when we get down below. And the diesel engines that you see, all they actually do is just power generators, and they charge the batteries up. So that's where we get diesel electric from. Going to the other point, patrol submarine. She's not an attack, she's a patrol submarine, spy submarine, a better word for it. So coming back to this, the O-class, the Ocelot was actually built, if we look, these buildings on the left there, go straight to the end and you'll actually see slip 7, the building sticking out, looks like a glass cathedral, and that's where the Ocelot was built. She was the last one actually built here at Chatham for our Royal Navy. They built 3 more O-class after this one, but they were actually for the Canadian Navy. You take the Ocelot, she was actually laid down in 1960. She was launched here in 1962, and she was commissioned and fitted for the Royal Navy in 1964. She served right up until 1991, and then she was decommissioned in 1991. So decommissioned in 1991, we don't know exactly what she did because her logs are still classified, top secret as such. We do know 2 things, was that when she was first launched, she actually went over to the Med, and she was actually doing experiments with certain torpedoes, and then during the Cold War she played a big part as a patrol submarine, spy submarine around the Baltic states, and that's basically what they were designed for. O-class, very efficient design, used right up until 2005. The last O-class in operation that I can remember was called the O'Brien, and she was doing trials for the Chilean Navy around 2005. We take some of the apparatus you can see on the outside. We go to the front there, the 4 sonar dome, and it's an active passive sonar, and it does exactly what it says in the films. It does the ping, the pong, backwards and forwards. It's actually known as the eyes and ears of the submarine when she's below the surface. We come down there, you'll see the 3 starboard torpedo doors. We've got 3 on the starboard side, and we've got 3 on the port side. We come across from the sonar dome, and you've got the forward hydroplanes. Now those forward hydroplanes, they actually work in conjunction. If we look at the rear of the submarine, we're on there to submerge the submarine, and then via compressed air you blow the tanks and you bring the submarine back to the surface. We go back to the submarine. Once she's below the surface, she's actually weightless or zero buoyancy. So what happens is those hydroplanes can actually move the submarine up and down and not just left to right. Come across then to the main sail, we call it the fin. Its primary purpose, as you can see there, is to house the masts. The first one we got is the tap periscope. We'll see that in a minute. Behind that you've got the search. Beyond that you've got radar, and then you've got the communication towers. There's 2 more up there. They're actually known as snortels, and what they do is they take the air intake to the engine and also the exhaust. So you can actually run those diesel engines at periscope department. As you look forward there, you'll actually see the torpedo tubes. We've got 3 on the starboard side, the right, and you've got 3 on the port side, the left-hand side. In the centre there, you've actually got the stall, a green stall, and that's where they were actually originally fired from. The same thing as mobile phones as such today, you get upgrades, and so the submarines gets the upgrade, and you now actually fire the torpedoes from the control room, and we'll see that panel when we get there in a few moments. Coming back to the torpedoes, one of them is behind you there, and that's known as a Mark 8 torpedo. It's a simple torpedo. It's known as a point and shoot. It's unguided. If you take the warhead there, right at the front, inside that you've got a plastic explosive. Once it hits its target, it detonates the warhead, and obviously designed to do as much damage as possible. These particular ones have 2 speed. We talk about the fast speed. It's got a speed of 45 knots, 51 miles an hour, and it's got a radius of about 2 miles. Going back to that, if it didn't hit its target, it would then run out of power and actually start to drop to the seabed. Depending on the depth, it'll either reach the seabed or it'll actually disintegrate before it actually reaches the bottom. Coming back to those, you need to, but you could actually carry 24. You'd have 6 loaded in the tube, and if you look at yourselves either side, you'd have the 18. And down below you can actually see the tray, so you could actually fit 24 in this compartment at the end, and you'll see that on the way through. So it's known as the forward escape compartment. So what happens is you've got two forms of escape. One's a controlled one, one's a rush. The controlled one speaks for itself. It's the controlled escape. Quite simple. Put on a suit, climb through here, swim to the top. We won't go into great detail. The other one though, the rush one, we'll talk about that. Rush escape. What happens is you've got a working crew of 69 on board. You're split between the two ends, so you've got the fore and the aft. You have to evacuate the submarine. You come straight in. What you have is one of these. It's called a breather, and you actually plug it in. If you look around, you'll see this system all the way around you. It's known as a built-in breathing system. First thing you do is you start breathing through that right from the very start. The reason being is what happens next is they're going to seal that door. They're going to drop a skirt from here and pin it, and they're going to start flooding. You're already in a pressurised system. If you weren't breathing through that, you'll get what the divers call the bends. So you'd already be on cloud 9 or you'd be unconscious. You start to flood the compartment, you're breathing through the system. What happens is the water will actually stop here. You finally get an equal pressure and the water stops. You then open this hatch, and then one at a time you come down the line, you take your one last breath, you dive up to the top. One thing you've got to do is on the way up to the top, very difficult, you've got to breathe out. Okay, can we keep moving forward?
Isn't it?
Can we keep coming forward? That we saw above. A couple of things that you will probably recognise as we point them out, or you actually know of, is if we take this one here, this is known as the control room hatch. Once you go through the hatch, you're in what's known as the conning tower. And as you see, is like in some of the films, if you look up there, you'll actually see, you can verify that. You see that cupboard that's locked up there? And again, that's where they did keep arms padlocked up there, actually in the conning tower. Again, the same thing as you've heard on a submarine. You go up through the conning tower, you're on top of that fin, and that's known as the breach. So that's where we get the breach from. Coming back to what we can see around us, over there is where we now fire the torpedo. One is no longer there. Coming around to the workings of the submarine, just over there behind you, you can actually see those old bath tap type things. They're the ballast tanks, that's the ones. And that's where we actually flood the tanks and also fire. Reason being is you can sit on this, fire the foot pedals, you can go round and round and round forever and a day. Great fun. This one has got binocular vision, so therefore you've got the 3D view. Also on the handles you've got magnification, ×4, 16, 32 and so on. Various apertures around there, which means you can take photographs, attach cameras, infrared and as such, because you actually need to know your land markings. Before we move on, 2 urban myths about periscopes. The first one is they don't just look horizontal, they do actually look into the sky, both of them. So you need to do that, i.e. also just to take a note of where you are via the stars, and also to look out for enemy aircraft. The other one is you see on the films, they flick the handles up and go up periscope, and it goes up magically. It doesn't. It's got a member of crew here, and you can see these brass or these chrome handles. What happens is the captain says up periscope. You've got someone here going like this, pumping the hydraulics, and that's what actually takes the periscope up.
You want your bottle?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Engines, as I say, all they are is just great big battery chargers. They run these generators. Just shouting back to you, they're V16 supercharged diesels, and they actually give out 3,680 horsepower. The electricity actually drives the electric motors, and each one of those motors actually runs at 3,000 horsepower. So 2 very, very powerful engines and motors.
They're drying up, it seems to me. The batteries out. But these are only 220 DC, but all the DC.
Again, going back to the stokers, as it would be on board locomotives and the old steamships and such, the stokers are the guys that look after those engines and electric motors below. And again, that's why they're called the stokers. Again, it's exactly the same as the crew quarters we saw up the front there. This is where they'd spend their time, again, eating, sleeping, helping to prepare their food, entertaining themselves as such. Again, as you came through the first one there, you'll see the built-in breathing system all the way around, and you'll actually see the other hatch, the escape hatch, just as you come through. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye. It's who you've got going down. It's a bit like a crew.